Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Maison de la Paix, to the Ivan Pictet Auditorium. My name is Andrew Clapham. I'm a professor here at the Geneva Graduate Institute, and I'm standing in for the director of the Institute, Professor Maria Ressa. This is an event, fear not, with very few speeches, so don't worry. It's rather about the screening of a film, The Price of Truth, directed by Patrick Forbes, about the life of Dmitry Muratov, and we're very honored to have them both here this evening, and they're going to be in discussion with you after the film. You will hear very briefly now from Patrick Forbes, who's the president of the Freedom Cartoonists Association, one of the co-sponsors of this event, and after him from the Président de le Conseil d'État de la République et Canton de Genève, Mr. Antonio Hodges. Welcome home, Mr. Hodges. Great to see you here again. He has 2 master's degrees from the Institute. There will then be an introduction to the film by the director, Patrick Forbes. The film lasts around 75 minutes, and we've scheduled a discussion until 8:15 p.m. with the laureate of the Nobel Peace Prize, Mr. Murat, and the director of the film. And this will be moderated by Corinne Momal-Vanian. This whole event takes place in the context of Geneva Democracy Week and is organized by the Graduate Institute's Albert Hirschman Center on Democracy. And I'm very grateful to its executive director, Dr. Christine Lutger, who's done all the hard work behind this. Now let me introduce the first co-sponsor to the event from the Kofi Annan Foundation, represented here by its executive director, Corinne Momal-Vanian. Corinne was the director of conference management at the UN office here in Geneva from 2015 to 2020, and previously worked as the director of information. She served as the special assistant to Kofi Annan in 2005 to 2006, traveling with him to some 20 countries as he worked to resolve crises, diffuse tension, and highlight the plight of communities and individuals suffering from discrimination and abuses, and to build international cooperation and strengthen support for development and justice. Passionate about justice, gender equality, inclusion, and innovation and learning, Corinne has chaired the steering group of the International Gender Champions here in Geneva till 2019, and she was the co-organizer of 3 editions of the TEDx Place des Nations. Corinne, you have the floor.
You have to hit the microphone. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you all for being here on a Friday evening. We don't take it for granted. It is Friday the 13th after all. But I think there is no more fitting way than this event to end Geneva Democracy Week. We hear all the time about the retreat of democracy, and the latest numbers that we've seen is that we're back to 1986 global levels of democracy, so about the time that perestroika started. And we see also that this retreat of democracy has coincided with an increase in conflict and conflict-related deaths that are at a 28-year high, that were at the 28-year high in 2022, and that's before the latest events. And it has also coincided with a decrease in the effectiveness of global governance mechanisms as we know it. So the retreat of democracy is undeniable. What is more questionable, I think, is what we hear about people turning away from democracy, turning their back on democracy. And I don't buy it at all. Yes, numbers show that young people are disillusioned with democracy, but they're not really disillusioned with democracy per se. They're disillusioned with democracy as practiced by their elders, frankly. And people like Dmitry Muratov here show us that there are indeed a lot of people still willing to stand up for democracy. I was last week in Athens at the Athens Democracy Forum, where we gave out the first Kofi Annan Next Gen Prize on democracy to an extraordinary young Zimbabwean woman, Namatai Kwekwoza, who galvanizes young people in her country to protect the rule of law. So I don't buy that people don't want democracy anymore. They want better, deeper democracy that delivers for them. And one of the ways that that they are fighting is by fighting for freedom of expression and freedom of the press. Authoritarian regimes have always understood that restricting access to information was key to them holding on to power. But now they have weapons of mass disinformation, which maybe they didn't have before. So this is the time when we really need journalists, when we really need professional journalism. Because if we want to protect human rights, if we want to avert conflicts, if we want to protect the environment from the greed of the few, we do need proper journalists and we do need facts. So thank you, Dmitry Muratov, for what you do, for the courage that you show. I want to thank also our host, the Graduate Institute, the Freedom Cartoonists Foundation, our partners, and the canton. Merci au canton de Genève pour leur soutien pour cet événement. Et merci encore à tous d'être là ce soir pour voir ce film extraordinaire. Et merci à Patrick Forbes aussi d'être là. Je passe la parole à Patrick Chapat qui n'a pas besoin d'être présenté.
Thank you so much. Bonsoir. That's what we do. We speak English in Geneva. And some Russian too, I guess. I hope I think we all realize how lucky we are today. We were blessed already a few months ago on May 3, 2022, in this very room to have you, Dmitry Muratov, along with Maria Ressa, the two Nobel Peace Laureates together. It was the first time you were reunited since the Oslo ceremony, I think. It was the first time you came out of Russia after the outbreak of the war. It was an incredible moment. The day before was another incredible moment to have a cheese fondue with you at Bain des Paquis, where you showed your skills. You warned us, first at the Oslo ceremony when you received the Nobel, you told the world is in love with the idea of autocracy. It's looking away from democracy, and autocracy leads to war. You told us that. And a few months after that, in Geneva, when you were here, you told the audience how this process goes. First, they attack the opponents, then they attack the free press, then they outreach propaganda, massive propaganda, and then comes war. And Maria Ressa, along with you, warned us about what she called the toxic sludge that's coursing through our information ecosystem, social media. And we're seeing today, 17 months after that, that was 17 months ago, that was another war ago. We are seeing now how social media and propaganda are waging a war inside our minds. It's terrorizing. We are terrorized for that. So thank you so much, Dmitry, for being again in Geneva. We can't believe our luck. You are, I hope people realize, you are a voice in this world. You are a voice of conscience, and we need you. Please take care of you. Thank you so much, and I give the floor to the Président du Conseil d'État, Monsieur Gers.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to thank you all for being here today and to address a especially warm welcome to Mr. Muratov and Mr. Forbes. We are honored to have you with us tonight. The world has fallen out of love with democracy. Those are the words you said, Mr. Muratov, as Patrick Chapat remind us, when you received the Nobel Peace Prize. Those are the words which struck me when said in the movie The Price of Truth. They struck me, however, I know you're right. It's a shocking statistic from the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance that we have underlined quite a number of times over the last few years. Indeed, the number of countries which are moving towards to autocracy exceeds the number of countries which are on the way to democracy. And a vast number of democracies are themselves in decline. Therefore, the situation on an international scale shows us we have to protect democracy. We have to speak out loud to defend democracy. We have to act for democracy. And by the way, we should also put our own house in order. That is also true here in Switzerland, where the vote turnout is desperately low. Yes, here as well, ladies and gentlemen, we need to nurture democracy through voting, by debating and discussions. Of course, the challenges humanity faces nowadays are tremendous and global. Take climate change. How could our slow-moving democracies rise up to such a challenge? Speed. Dictatorship is speed. We live in an era when everything resolves around speed. But the most important challenge, it is really speed. No, not at all. The most important challenge still remains peace and freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, the movie we are going to watch together is of cardinal importance, and I would like to thank Mr. Patrick Forbes, who made it, for such a valuable piece of work. It is of cardinal importance because it reminds us that democracy must never be taken for granted. It reminds us that human rights must never be taken for granted. I would like to take this opportunity to honor the journalists from all over the world who have a well-deserved reputation for excellences by investigating, by digging, by uncovering buried truths. Thank you, Mr. Muratov, for being here to speak to us about that. And a warm thanks to Albert Hirschman Center on Democracy, the Graduate Institute, the Kofi Annan Foundation, and the Freedom Cartoonists Foundation for making this exchange possible. Thank you for your attention. The floor is for Patrick Forbes. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. So this is very alarming, because directors don't normally get to speak in front of quite so many people. Anyway, that day that Dima and Maria were here last year, was memorable for a whole set of reasons. It was memorable for the hangover that I had because of Patrick Chapat and the fondue and the beer that went with it. But it was also memorable because I suddenly realized what my movie was about, which is, yeah, well, you know, if you're making a documentary, it's basically like setting out on a freeway without a map. You know it's interesting, you know where you're going, but you don't quite know why you're going there. And I realized that I was making a film about people who are risking everything when they went home, which is the exact opposite of what I suspect the majority of you do. And also, I was going to start this by apologizing for speaking English. Little did I realize. I'm in the home of English. But because I'm English, I should also apologize for something else. I'm going to say nice things about Dima, who has had many nice things said about him, but he always gets slightly embarrassed. So I will say that he is amongst the bravest and most principled people I know. And I don't know that many, but, you know, I know enough, and he is. And when he got the Nobel Prize, this is when I started on the motorway, I knew that what was coming was a battle between freedom, which is what he represents, and control, which is what Putin represents. And sadly, well, you're about to see what happens. It doesn't yet have a happy ending, though I pray that one day it will. Okay, I hope you enjoy it, if enjoy is the right term, and I hope it prompts some thoughts.
Is this on? Yeah, thank you. Well, I don't think I've ever been so intimidated in my life. It's really something standing next to you, Dmitry. It's very moving. And we will take questions from the audience, but it's the privilege of the moderator to ask the first question. You have now been designated as a foreign agent. What does it mean exactly? What difference is it going to make?
Знаете, в России есть конституция.
Well, as you know, there is a constitution in Russia.
Никто не сомневается, что есть конституция.
Is there somebody who is doubting the existence of a constitution in Russia?
В конституции есть статья номер 29.
And there's an article, 29, in the constitution,
Там сказано, что цензура запрещена.
which says censorship is prohibited.
Я соблюдал конституцию,
And I've complied with the constitution.
и меня объявили врагом народа.
And I was declared people's enemy.
Я считаю, что это сделали враги конституции.
And I think this was done by those who are enemies of the constitution.
Новая газета продолжает защищать конституцию.
And Novaya Gazeta continues to defend the constitution.
Все очень просто.
It's all that simple.
Thank you. Thank you. And turning to Patrick, what was for you the most difficult moment during the film?
Oh my God.
The one when you thought, I should stop?
Well, I think there are about 28 difficult moments. I think, actually, the most difficult moment was one this year after we had stopped filming on July the 4th, because one of Dima's journalists, I don't know, there may be some people who know about this, went to Chechnya and was beaten incredibly badly, so much so that her brain was damaged. And sitting at home, we then heard the news that Dima was flying to Chechnya, where it's safe to say that he's not very popular, to get her and get her back. And I have to say, I rang various of the funders of this film and said, right, don't write this down, but this is what's happening. And they all, like me, said, well, it's going to be a bit of a tense night. Anyway, he came back and with her and got her safely to Moscow. And I think that's the mark of the man, in that he was doing something completely insane and utterly justified. Brave, principled, and in defense of freedom of speech. That said, nervous people back in London would rather he didn't.
I don't think Our friend the interpreter got all of this, but I'm sure you can tell almost nothing. So next time he'll turn towards you. But let me ask you another question. Last year when you were here, you said there was a divide in Russian society among generations. I remember you saying the people over 40, they believe the information they see on television. But the young people are different. Is that still the case? And where do the young people get their information from?
Это правда.
Yes, what you said is true.
Если мы посмотрим все исследования современного общества, то более 80% людей в возрасте от 18 до 40 лет, они сторонники мира и мирных переговоров.
Well, if you look at all these surveys, you will find out that all people who are above the age of 18, 80% of them are for peace.
Среди людей пожилого поколения назовем их брошенными стариками из СССР. Сторонников войны намного больше, приблизительно 80% там сторонники войны.
If we look at the older generation, approximately 80% of them will be for war, which notion they inherited from the Soviet Union.
Я знаю, что сейчас в Европе все россияне, молодые, старые, которые протестуют или которые поддерживают Путина, они все считаются одинаковыми людьми, которые сторонники войны.
And I know that all Russians who are abroad, whether they are young or old, whether they are for peace or for war, they all considered to be in favor of war.
Позвольте, я чуть дольше отвечу на ваш вопрос.
Let me provide a lengthier answer to your question.
Вот Патрик Форбс, он пошел против мейнстрима.
Now look at Patrick Forbes, who went against the mainstream.
Он решил рассказать историю про русских журналистов. Это вообще-то сейчас в Европе не принято, это неприлично.
He decided to tell a story about Russian journalists, which is not the thing which is done now in Europe. And it's not a decent thing to do.
Для русских есть только кнопка cancel.
For Russians, there is only one button, cancel.
Мы попали в список Форбса.
So we are on the Forbes list.
Патрик пошел против мейнстрима.
And again, Patrick went against the mainstream.
Вы мне говорите про молодое поколение, которые являются сторонниками мира, да?
You're talking to me about a younger generation who is for peace.
Ну вот смотрите, а распоряжением Европейского Союза у тех молодых людей из России, которые не хотят убивать и которые не хотят быть убитыми, при пересечении границы у них отбирают телефоны, ноутбуки и даже шампуни.
Now look what is happening. Young Russians who are crossing the European borders and who are for peace, all their shampoo, notebooks, telephones are confiscated.
Потому что они должны поехать и свергнуть Путина.
Because they have to go back and overthrow Putin.
Ну, Путина, с которым уже 600 дней сражается половина мира.
The Putin, which the world has been fighting against for almost 600 days.
Вместо того, чтобы поддержать этих молодых людей,
And instead of supporting these young people,
вся надежда у нас только на это поколение с прекрасной эмпатией.
given that all our hopes are with this young generation, with their wonderful empathy,
У них отбирают ноутбуки, машины и шампуни. И говорят, вон, обратно.
what happens to them is that at the border, their telephones, their cars, and then shampoo is taken away, and they are told, go back.
Я рад, что у Европы будут шампуни молодого поколения россиян, которые бегут от войны.
And I'm happy that Europe will have the shampoo taken from the younger generation, which is against the war.
Но чистыми с этими шампунями быть не получится.
But you can't be clean using this shampoo.
Смотрите, Индия увеличила... Спасибо.
Thank you.
Смотрите, Россия увеличила в 19 раз продажу своей нефти в Индию.
Now look what's happening. Russia has increased its sales of oil to India 19 times.
А Индия в 7 раз увеличила продажу нефти вам, в Европу.
And India has increased its sales of oil to you, to Europe.
Скажите,
sevenfold.
пожалуйста, чью нефть вы покупаете?
Now you tell me, whose oil are you buying?
Теперь у вас есть нефть и шампунь.
Now you have the oil and you have the shampoo.
Поддержите то поколение, которое хочет мира. Поддержите украинцев.
Support the generation which wants peace.
Тут
Support
Патрик.
Ukraine. Now,
Тут Патрик с этим кино.
now we have Patrick with his film.
Ему говорят, все русские рабы,
And he's been told all Russians are slaves.
а он заставляет вас почти 2 часа здесь сидеть.
But he has kept you here for almost 2 hours.
Нехорошо, Патрик.
This is not good, Patrick.
I disagree.
Знаете,
Я не согласен.
еще бутылка Маккеллан.
Another bottle of Macchio.
А знаете, про что он снял кино?
Now, do you know what the film was about?
Чем меньше свободы слова, тем больше гробов.
The less there is freedom of expression, the more tombs they are, the more coffins they are.
Чем меньше демократии, тем больше трупов.
The less democracy there is, the more corpses there are.
Мы правда присутствуем при последнем акте грандиозной мировой драмы.
We are witnessing the last act of a grandiose worldwide drama
Между союзом демократий,
between the Union of Democracies,
который становится все слабее,
which are growing weaker and weaker,
и альянсом диктатур,
and the alliance of dictatorships,
который становится все сильнее.
which is becoming stronger and stronger.
Отгадайте, Хамас признан в России террористической организацией?
Now, I'll let you guess. Is Hamas recognized in Russia as a terrorist organization?
Не отгадали?
You haven't guessed. Yeah.
Отгадали.
Some people have guessed.
Вот что я хотел сказать. Поддержите это поколение.
So this is what I want to tell you. Support this
Давайте
generation.
поддерживать людей, которые за мир.
Let's support the people who are for peace.
Давайте откажемся от коллективного наказания.
Let's give up the notion of collective punishment.
Давайте вспомним, что даже во время войны нельзя отменять права человека, иначе снова будет война.
And let's remember that even at wartime, you cannot deny human rights, because this will bring on us another war.
Вот я сказал все, что хотел, но потом попрошу еще 1 минуту времени.
This
у
is
Карины.
all I wanted to say, but I want to get another minute later.
I think I'm going to give the opportunity to people in the audience to ask questions. So what I have to ask you is not to make speeches. We have very little time, and we want to give the opportunity to several people to ask questions. So no speeches, no diatribes, just a question. I see a young man over there at the back who raised his hand the first, so I'll take it. Well, let's take 2 questions. So, is there another question I'm very short-sighted, so maybe you have to stand up. Yes, there's another one here. You're showing me here? Over there? Okay, so let's start here and then there. Thank you. Is there a, do you have a microphone? Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll try to be very brief. My name is Ruslan Pavlishin. I'm a conflict, peace, and security candidate here at the Institute. I would like to return back to the question, which is the topic of this, which is the title of this film, The Price of Truth. And I wanted to ask, what is the price of truth in a country where only 9% of the population was represented as having a say in this film? The population of St. Petersburg and Moscow may have a say and a political will, but we haven't seen the rest of Russia, which is a deprived country and has many other issues, where 15% of the population lives below poverty line. What do these people have to say about the price of truth? Does truth have any value to them? Thank you.
Thank you. And there was another one there before we come to the, where was the, can you raise your hand again, or was it here? Sorry, is the lady in the front here, sorry. Here? Yeah.
Dmitry Andreevich, здравствуйте, рад вас видеть. I'll ask my question in English. Do you believe that a civil war is coming in the next few months in Russia? And what do you think that honest people who are for peace should do in that case? Thank you.
Ну, давайте я не буду только отвечать за всех, я отвечу про «Новую газету» и про себя, хорошо?
I'm not answering for everybody or for the whole people. I'm answering for myself and for Novaya Gazeta.
Знаете, я вам хочу показать одну фотографию, какую цену платят русские журналисты за то, чтобы говорить правду.
I want to show you one photograph to demonstrate what kind of price Russian journalists are paying for saying the truth.
Патрик сегодня совершил цензуру в отношении своего фильма и не показал последние кадры.
Patrick has committed an act of censorship. He didn't show the last frames.
В Чечне 4 июля была страшно избита наша специальный корреспондент Елена Милашина вместе с адвокатом Немовым.
Yelena Milasha, with her lawyer Nemov, was severely beaten on the 4th of July in Chechnya.
Хотите, я вам покажу свободу слова, вид сзади?
Do you want me to show you freedom of expression, but from the back?
18+. Кому не исполнилось 18 лет, пожалуйста, прочь из зала.
Those who are below the age of 18 may leave the hall.
Она приехала в Чечню заниматься расследованием.
She went to Chechnya to investigate,
Ее встретили в аэропорту,
and she was met at the airport
где работают сотни камер.
with hundreds of cameras installed there.
Их били 20 минут.
And they were beaten for 20 minutes.
Я с разрешения редакции покажу вам спину Милашиной.
And with the permission of my editorial board, I will show you her back.
После этого не надо мне никому говорить о том, что в России нет сопротивления насилию и жестокости.
And after this, don't go and tell me there is no resistance to brutality and violence in Russia.
Вы сейчас увидите, что такое сопротивление профессиональных журналистов.
Now you will see an example of resistance from professional journalists.
Не видно?
Can you see this?
А хотите, я вам покажу свободу слова во весь рост?
Do you want me to show freedom of expression full scale?
А вот. А это
Here
во
it
весь
is.
рост. Кремль заявил, что преступление будет раскрыто.
And the Kremlin said this crime will be investigated and the protagonists will be found.
Ей ломали пальцы, чтобы она сказала пароль своего телефона.
And her fingers were broken to make her tell the password to her phone.
Не сказала.
She didn't say this.
Прошло август, сентябрь, октябрь. 3 месяца и 1 неделя.
So August, September, October, and about 3 weeks more, this time has passed and nothing happened.
Отгадайте, найдены эти палачи?
Now, guess again. Did they find the executioners?
20 тысяч человек преследуются за антивоенные выступления.
20,000 people are, well, not prosecuted, but persecuted for anti-war deeds.
Почти как в Советском Союзе, почти 600 человек, тех, кто сидит как политические заключенные.
It's almost like in the Soviet Union. It's about 600 people who are in prison, who are political prisoners.
Русские журналисты, блестящие журналисты, вынуждены работать за границей. И я вам хочу сказать, читайте их. Это бум российской профессиональной журналистики. Лучшие расследования, репортажи и документальные фильмы.
Russian journalists, excellent, brilliant journalists, are working abroad. And I want to tell you, read them, because these are excellent people and excellent reporting.
Патрик, фонд Кофи Аннана, помогите украинским журналистам, которые снимают документальное кино.
Patrick, the Kofi Annan Foundation, help the Ukrainian journalists who are making films, documentary films.
Евгений Малолетко, Мстислав Чернов
Евгений
сняли
Малолетко,
гениальный фильм
Vyacheslav Smirnov
о том, как умирал город Мариуполь.
took a brilliant film on the death of the city of Mariupol.
Они выдвинуты на Оскара, но украинские журналисты работают прямо в самой гуще трагедии, они работают в аду. Учредите премию для украинских журналистов-документалистов. Вот сегодня не уходите отсюда, пока не решите это.
And don't go away from here before you take this decision. Establish a prize for them, because these people are working in devilish conditions.
Евгений Малолетко, лауреат Орд пресс-фото,
Евгений Малолетко,
лауреат Пулитцеровской премии,
Who is a
дал мне
laureate
сюда фотографии перед тем, как я ехал.
of the Pulitzer Prize and the World Press Photo, gave me a photograph before I came here.
Это украинские журналисты, Чернов, Малолетко, их продюсеры, они снимают это.
Chernov, Malolетko, their producers, these are the people who take these
Он,
photos.
по моей просьбе он снимал только детей.
And upon my request, he took pictures only of children.
Это надо видеть, хватит уставать.
You need to look at these pictures.
Хватит говорить, что
Don't get
все это
tired.
надоело, что появились новые новости.
Don't say we are tired of this, because there is more news coming.
Никаких новых новостей.
No new news.
Пока это происходит.
While this is taking place.
Закройте глаза, кто хочет.
And if you want to, you can close your eyes.
Это надо снимать. С этими людьми надо жить вместе. И это надо смотреть.
This should be documented. This should be seen.
Да. Спасибо.
Thank you.
Yeah, and quickly after that libel on me, I should say that the broadcast versions of the film, this is the one that's been shown in cinemas and festivals, does include the sequence where Milashna is rescued. It's extraordinarily moving and very disturbing. So if you look at the, I think it's the ARD and the Arte versions here, or PBS in the States, you'll see it, and you'll see what I mean. It is. What's that? I don't know why. Here, oh, this is the festival. This is what we call a festival version. Anyway, don't worry. You have to add it. It has to be added on at enormous cost on this. So we made a decision to show this version here. which does have quite a lot about Geneva, which has been unfortunately snipped slightly out of some of the broadcast versions. But there you go. But
All right, so would you allow 2 more questions? Oh, yeah.
И дайте мне минуту в конце, 1 минуту.
Yeah, okay, and then at the end, just give me 1
Просто
minute.
подарите.
Just make me this gift.
1-2 minutes. Only 1-2 minutes.
Okay, so let's take 2 more, and then you heard him. That's it.
that guy's
Yes.
going to embarrass at the back.
Because I'm blinded by it.
The guy at the back.
Okay.
He's about to die. You don't.
So don't die, yes, just ask the question. There, we have the person with the microphone right there, yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, I would like to say, and I believe in the name of the whole audience, that we admire your courage, as well as all those Russian journalists and others who are paying such a high price for the truth they want to bring. And the question I would like to ask you is, how do you see the further movement in Russia? When do you believe, if it will be possible, that the price of truth will be rather positive, that you will receive acclaim rather than being named foreign agent, becoming enemy of the people? And by the way, my family, we immigrated in '79. I was in 3rd grade of the school, 9 years old. And when my actually classmates learned it, they called me traitor, and my parents had to take me out of the school. So after over 40 years, I see the same things going on. So how do you think history goes back? Yeah, how do you think the future what can happen and what will happen, and what can be the trigger, the first trigger for change?
Поймите меня правильно.
Please understand me correctly.
Я сейчас не хочу думать о будущем.
I don't want to think about the future right now.
Я не политолог.
I'm not a political scientist.
Я думаю только о том, что происходит сейчас.
What I think about is what is happening right now.
Вот смотрите. Вот смотрите. Сейчас голодают 262 миллиона людей.
262 million people experience hunger.
А за время войны на Украине число голодающих увеличилось на 9 миллионов.
And during the war, the number of people who went hungry increased by 9 million.
Нам кажется, война где-то там, а на самом деле она здесь.
Well, it looks to us, it feels like the war is somewhere else, but in fact, it's here.
Вместе с дождями, водой и реками сюда и во весь мир, во всю Европу и в мир приходит отравленная снарядами и горючим земля.
And it is with rains, the river flows, and precipitation that the land, the ground, poisoned by bombs and projectiles, come here.
Только на Украине разрушено за это время 1300 школ.
1,300 schools have been destroyed in Ukraine.
Сейчас 3 миллиона детей беженцев.
So there are about 3 million children who are refugees.
Голод в Африке страшный. Деньги, которые мы 103 миллиона отдали, они уже кончились. Что делать дальше?
The hunger in Africa is enormous. It's frightening. The $103 million that it got, it has been spent already.
Эти деньги помогли приблизительно 400 тысяч детей-беженцев. Дальше-то что?
So the money helped about 400,000 children, refugees. And then what else? Where
Я
do we go
написал
from
письмо.
now? And I wrote a letter.
У нас в мире 3000 миллиардеров.
In this world, we have 3,000 billionaires.
Я предложил им заплатить налог на чужое горе.
And I suggested that they pay a tax on other people's grief and misery,
Чтобы собрать деньги к Новому году на ликвидацию срочного голода и помощи детям-беженцам.
so that we can collect money to liquidate hunger as urgently as possible.
А дальше произошло невиданное.
And then something happened that nobody has foreseen.
Я попросил подписать это письмо нескольких лауреатов Нобелевских премий в разных областях.
And I asked some Nobel Prize laureates who got their prizes in various areas, and I asked them to sign this letter.
Но я думал, подпишут 3 человека.
And I thought, well, maybe
Ну, я
three of them will sign, I'll be the fourth.
Лечу в Стокгольм.
So I flew to Stockholm.
Перед самолетом говорят, 3 подписи есть.
And before I boarded the plane, I was told there are 3 signatures already.
Приземляюсь в Стамбуле, другого пути из Москвы сейчас нет.
Because there is no other route from Moscow, I'll land in Istanbul.
Мне говорят, 10 подписей лауреатов Нобелевских премий.
And I'm told, when I was there, that there are already 10
Письмо к миллиардерам.
signatures
Скинуться на помощь беженцам.
to the letter addressed to billionaires to give some money for the refugees.
Через 4 часа приземляюсь в Стокгольме. 24 подписи.
4 hours later, I landed in Stockholm, and I was told there were 24 signatures.
Выхожу выступать с этим письмом. Говорю, 35.
So I went to meet the people with this letter, and before I spoke, I was then given the news. There are 35
Спрашиваю, кто
signatures.
эти люди?
And I asked the question, who are these
Это
people?
лауреаты Нобелевских премий, которые открыли важнейшие физические процессы.
These are people, Nobel Prize laureates, who have discovered very important physical
Важнейшие
processes,
лекарства.
or most important medicines,
Гепатит С,
the hepatitis C,
новые металлы.
new metals.
Выхожу на трибуну, мне говорят, 40 человек.
So I go to the rostrum, and they tell me,
Главных
40
мозгов планеты.
people have signed the letter. These are the best brains on the planet.
Я говорю, ну что, получается, мы создали социальную сеть нобелевских лауреатов?
And I said, well, okay, looks like we created a social network of Nobel Prize laureates.
Сейчас еду к вам, 49 человек.
No, I was coming to see you, and I was told there are 49 people who signed the letter.
Давайте через год встретимся, я расскажу, есть ли на свете миллиардеры, которые отказали 49 великим мозгам планеты.
Let's meet next year, and I'll tell you if there are billionaires who refused to give the money when 49 best brains in the world talked to them.
Поддержите! Поддержите! Патрик, поддержи! Патрик Шапат, поддержи!
So, Patrick Shepard,
Эрик Хёсли,
provide your
Лятан,
support.
поддержите!
Eric Firstly, Nathan, provide your support.
Вот тут сидит новая газета «Европа». Катя и Даниил,
Novaya
поддержите!
Gazeta, Europe, Katya, and
Даниил,
Daniel, here, provide your support.
давайте сделаем так, чтобы невозможно было уклониться от почетной обязанности помочь тем, кому хуже.
So let's do it in the way that will make it impossible to evade this honor of helping those in need.
Well, that's a call for action if I've ever called one.
Ответил.
Have I answered your question?
Не ответил.
No? I'm sorry. You have your agenda. No,
Sorry. Ваш ответ, ваш вопрос лучше, чем мой ответ, я знаю.
And I know that your question is better than my answer.
Все-таки вот сейчас здесь проходит с великими учеными, вот закончился только что 3 дня, был саммит, да, про anticipation. Это ученые, которые пытаются предвидеть будущее. И, кстати, один из пунктов – это предвидеть геополитическое будущее. Там они все ломают голову и так далее. По всему миру там 1500 ученых. И вот, ну, вы один из тех, которые лучше всего, наверное, знаете, да, вашу страну, поскольку сколько лет вы ее уже объездили со всех сторон и так далее.
Всех по-английски все-таки скажем.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry for that. Okay, but the point is you're the one probably who knows the best your country because you have been traveling all over, you know all sorts of people you met, and it's your passion, right? You love your country. So that's why it would be interesting what I said in the beginning, that we had a summit called GESDA for the last 3 days. It's a lot of scientists, 1,500 scientists plus politicians who gather. They're from all over the world, and they try to anticipate the future. And there is also one group which works on geopolitical future. So I believe you maybe didn't hear about it, but anyway, you're the one probably who knows among the best your country.
But
And of
if
course the
we're
leaders.
going to
So
have to, yeah.
Can you at least
Yes,
make?
sorry.
Okay, I don't ask you
He told
anticipation for
you.
many
He
years,
told
but
you
just
he's
a
more interested in the present.
No, but
than,
yeah,
than
I
the
know
future.
he's more interesting, but he has an idea certainly.
Спасибо.
Thank you. So,
Я искренне не знаю, есть ли будущее. Я занимаюсь настоящим.
I sincerely believe I don't know the future.
Мы живем в мире, где будущее зависит от пальца одного человека.
I deal with the present. And we live in a world where everything depends on the finger of one single person.
Поэтому я занимаюсь настоящим.
And that's why I address the present.
Sorry.
Dmitry and Patrick, I want to thank you for this extraordinary evening. I hope that by the time we meet here in this very auditorium on 3rd of May 2024 for World Press Freedom Day, when we will give out the next Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Awards, I hope you will have 200 signatories to your letter. Thank you for standing up, and thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for documenting it. Thank you, Patrick.